right, welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And tonight, I've got two special guests with me from the We're Talking Football podcast. I've got my man Weston, and I got my man Lou right there below us. Before we get started, fellas, I would be remiss if I do not let you plug the podcast. That is the whole point of the show, for gosh sakes. So, Weston, let me kick it over to you, my man.
Appreciate it, Jesse. And first and foremost, thank you so much for this opportunity to be part of your forum. We're both avid listeners, so it's an honor for us. But as Jesse said, we are the We're Talking Football podcast. We talk all things football. I make no secret. I'm a 49ers fan, Lou's a diehard Chargers fan, but we try to incorporate the entire league. So in the offseason, all your typical coverage, right? Whether it's draft related, Senior Bowl, free agency, we have a lot of fantasy football fun. And then in season, we try to stick with a pretty routine format that looks a lot like players of the weeks, whose stock's rising, whose stock's falling. Of course, there's some sprinkled in 49er and Charger recaps. And we always kick it off with close the show with a little love around fantasy football because, hey, that's the new fad these days. And in my world, it's been the fad for 20 plus years. But again, we appreciate this opportunity. And I'll just, if you don't mind, Jesse, I'll kick it to Lou real quick so you can tell your audience, where they can find us if they're interested.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so everyone can find us on our Instagram or Twitter at WTF Pod NFL. Apparently, it's one of the best social media platforms to follow. It's like Kim Kardashian, then you got us right underneath them, or all the Kardashians. We're like toe and toe with them, like the amount of like hits we get, and the amount of the content we drive. So follow us if you love Kardashians, you love football. We're your place to go, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything that they just talked about. Links are down in the description. So whether it's the podcast, whether it's the YouTube, Twitter, what have you, everything is down in the description. So go give them some love tonight. I know you're a Charger fan, Lou, and I know, guys, that on the We're Talking Football podcast, you guys discuss all football, but this is a Niners show mainly. So that's what we're going with tonight. And there's a lot of things happening in 49er land. I don't know how crazy it's been to cover the Chargers for you, Lou, but I can tell you the 49ers have given us no shortage of content this year, and it is getting hotter and hotter as we get closer to the playoffs. If you can believe that, the 49ers had a clear path to the playoffs. They blow it against the Titans. Jimmy G is now hurt and possibly out. Trey Lance may be playing. I mean, there is so many things going on. So let's just jump right into it. So listen, Weston, I'm going to kick it to you first. So yeah. 49ers playoff possibilities. There are so many different scenarios that are out there right now. But after that Titans game, how do you feel about the 49ers' chances of making the playoffs as it sits right now today?
Yeah, so I'm stealing some of Lou's language here where I feel like Alan in The Hangover trying to compute all these different scenarios. It's going a little crazy and haywire here. All that aside, I think I read somewhere this as of that Saint loss to Miami, somewhere in like the 68 to 75% chance range. And that's kind of like what my gut tells me. I'd like to be in a better position where I think we control our own destiny. But that's not the case, right? I think based on the remaining teams, the schedule, how things stack up, we're going to need help. But I still feel on the positive side, and that's not my fandom talking. I think they've done enough. They have some of those tiebreakers. So I still feel like this is a playoff football team, and they should reach the playoffs. But to me, it feels a lot more like that 7th seed if they do sneak in.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lou, let me uncover your face there. What are your thoughts?
Jesse, this is my moneymaker. We need to see my
face. He doesn't have a face made for radio, I promise. It's meant to be on the screen. No, what are your thoughts about the 49ers? Just looking from afar. I know you guys are in a similar situation where now you're scratching and clawing. It seems like the 49ers own their own destiny a little bit more than maybe the Chargers do at this point, but outside looking in, do you think the 49ers are worthy to be a playoff team?
Well, first and foremost, I'm sure a lot of your fans and listeners are going to love that. An outsider is going to be talking about 49 football, even though I don't follow it religiously as much as they do. But all that being said, I am an avid fan of the NFL, and I literally watch pretty much every NFL team. Looking at you guys right now, you're the 6th seed, you're 8-7. You have all the tiebreakers. What do you guys? For me, I'm just trying to calm your fears down. What are you nervous about? Okay, Philly, you beat Philly already. The Vikings, you beat the Vikings. Atlanta, please stop that. They've only beat up on bad teams. I guess the only other team that can possibly give you a little sense of urgency or nervousness, I'm going to say, is New Orleans, and what's going with their quarterback play. I wouldn't be terribly too worried. And looking at the Vikings schedule, that's probably one of your bigger threats. They're sitting at 7-8, a game behind you, but they play the Packers when the Packers still have something to prove upon this week. That's going to be a hard game. And then they play another divisional game against the Bears. So, which they always play. The Bears always play them tough. So, if I was a Niners fan, I would tell you guys, take a deep breath. Woosah, I'm confident you guys are going to be in the playoffs. Now, I don't know how much damage you guys do in the playoffs, but that's all my opinion.
No.
Okay. That's totally fair. All right. So I'll tell you where the worry comes in. It is New Orleans. So right now, obviously, they are a game ahead in the loss column with New Orleans. But any scenario where they go heads up with New Orleans, they're going to lose that tiebreaker because they didn't actually play them. And that includes any 3-team ties. So I'll give you the scenario that everybody's freaking out about this week. It's San Francisco, Philadelphia, New Orleans. If those 3 teams tie, the 49ers are out of the playoffs. Very, very interesting scenario. Now, a big thing happened last night with that loss to the Dolphins. Before going into last night, let's say New Orleans had beaten the Dolphins and lost one of their final 2 games to end the season. If they would have ended in a 4-way tie with the Vikings, the Eagles, 49ers, and New Orleans, the 49ers also would have been out. But now in this scenario, if they end in that 4-way tie because they lost to the Dolphins and would be winning 2 division games, that actually helps the 49ers get in. So the chances are higher now. It's just that 3-way. And I got to be honest with you, I do see a scenario where that happens. I could see the Eagles losing to Dallas week 18. I could definitely see the Saints winning their final 2 games. I believe they play the Falcons and the Panthers.
Yep.
And then I could see and I could see the Niners losing week 18 to the Rams. That means 3-way tie, Niners are out. So that's my biggest concern. And that's where my head's at. I could see that happening. New Orleans losing last night was definitely a help. I almost wanted them to win out though, because I felt it would help more.
So that's why it was baffling me so much with the talk of like, we need Miami to win this game. We need to win this game. And to the non-49er following fan, it's really easy to look at the math and say, you beat the Vikings, you beat the Falcons, you beat the Eagles, you have all those tiebreakers. But in that 3-way tie scenario, the tiebreakers kind of go out the window, and then it's divisional wins and what they look at next. And that's where not conference wins, right? And conference record and other things come into the equation. And that's where we shoot ourselves in the foot. And let's call it what it is. And you just said it, Jesse. We win against Tennessee. We're not having this conversation. We're not having this conversation.
Yeah,
it's that simple. Right. It's that simple.
But if you take care of your business in Houston, theoretically, you guys are pretty much, I'm assuming, right? You're theoretically pretty much in there.
No. So it's what Jesse just described, because we have the 1 game up, but if you look at it like conventional wisdom, let's say we lose to LA, right? So we're still only 1 game up, and then those 2 teams have winnable games the last 2 weeks. So it's either win out, or the other scenario that's described, and Jesse, keep me honest here, is win this week against Houston and hope that New Orleans lose against Carolina, and then we're in. And then if Philly loses one of the 2, then you're 6 seed versus a 7 seed. And that's why I say my gut tells me if we squeak in, it's that 7 seed that we end up with.
Yeah. And I mean, I would say right now, until we see, like, if the 49ers lose a game, then rooting interest should be for New Orleans. Basically, just avoid any ties with New Orleans. Like, that's what you've got to do at all costs. So, yeah, New Orleans would have to lose at that point. That is your option, right? So, it's an interesting scenario. There's a lot that goes into it. It's going to be a crazy final couple weeks. Now, listen, Weston, you just talked about it. If they had just taken care of business against the Titans, right, we wouldn't be talking about any of this. They would be fine. We could lose a game down the stretch. They would still be good. We're feeling good after hopefully a Texans win. I know that game was the most recent, and I know how that game went. We're going to talk more specifically about that game in a minute. But what game as a 49er fan keeps you up at night throughout the course of this whole season? The one loss that you're just like, man, if they had won that one, we could only be here.
If you survey anybody that knows me and knows I'm a lifelong 49ers fan, Jesse, they all keep me up. And not just one night, multiple nights. It's just the way that it goes. But if you really look at it, 5 of the 7 losses, one possession games, right? And some of those like the lesser of one possession, right? Field goals and less. Those sting because that could have come down to a single play, the ball bouncing in a different direction. And we know in the NFL they bounce in funny directions. But the one I'm not going to take the cop-out answer. The cop-out answer as a 49ers fan is both Seattle losses because you're tired of being talked about how they're your big brother and you start to believe that. So I'll take that out of the equation. To me, the second loss to the Cardinals is the one that still haunts me the most. That was a wounded team that limped into Santa Clara. Colt McCoy as your starting quarterback, no DeAndre Hopkins, no even AJ Green in that game. You had Chase Edmonds, my boy, Fordham University, let's go, literally get hurt on the first carry from scrimmage for the Cardinals. And you had the broadcasters turning James Conner into John Connor, the Terminator, based on his performance. And you saw, you and I, we're active on 49ers Twitter, right? So you see all the time you saw all the time leading into that game. I mean, people just like declaring this was a win, right? Because of what was going on. And a home game, we should be able, dude, they molly-whopped us. That game was never even close. They got out to a 17-0 lead. And to me, that was the most embarrassing loss of the season. The Green Bay loss I can swallow. You gave the ball to Aaron Rodgers with 39 seconds left on the clock. Like you knew that was going to happen. I turned to my own wife and was like, this is exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
These things happens when you play a Hall of Fame quarterback. Even the Titans game, like you went on the road on a short week against the number 2 seed in the AFC. Like, let's not sleep on this team for a second.
Right.
You could swallow those. That second Arizona loss, like I'm gonna have, if I didn't have these headphones on, I have smoke coming out my ears. It still bothers me to this day.
I feel it. Lou. Okay, I'm gonna ask you from a different perspective, Lou, because obviously you don't get, they're all the same to you. It's like the 49ers won or the 49ers lost, whatever. Was there one this season that you looked at it and was like, how the hell did they lose that game? I'm sure, do you guys do a pick 'em for your show? You guys do like a
yeah.
Okay. So when you were looking at it, you're like, Niners got this one locked, and then you came out a Sunday or Monday and were like, what the hell just happened?
First of all, if you get to know my colleague Weston, every week is a must-win week for the San Francisco 49ers, including week 1. Must-win game.
They're all must-win.
They're all
17 of them.
So
it sounds more like that's for his sanity. It's a must-win.
Valid point there, Jesse. So I'm going to basically reiterate the sentiment that Weston said. When doing a little more research, it had to be that Cardinals game. You don't lose to a Colt McCoy led team. I know Colt McCoy is serviceable, but they were without a lot of starters and on the road. Listen, as a Chargers fan, I sympathize and empathize what you guys go through. You play teams that are tougher than you, really good, and you play teams that are not as good as you. Not as much. You play down to your competition. I totally understand that. That game, I'd rather lose to a better team, so-called better team, not expecting to win, than lose to a team that they should have basically buried in that Cardinals team. I'm sorry, they were injury ridden, and it's just shocking that they lost. Like that was a head scratcher.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Everybody talked about those Seattle games, and they were tough. As a 49er fan, being from the Pacific Northwest, I cannot stand Seattle. But that being said, that Cardinals game, they had no business losing that game whatsoever. And especially when you look at a quarterback like Jimmy G, right? To me, he's a net zero quarterback. And when he's playing well, you've got to win those games. And truth be told, he played good in that game. It was not his fault. They had multiple fumbles. The defense gave up, play after play after play. Jimmy G played well. They needed to win that game, and there was way too many guys injured in that game for the Cardinals, for the 49ers not to win that. And Now, obviously, things change with the loss to the Titans, but had they won that game, they had a chance here coming in the final few weeks to win the division. Like, you beat the Rams, you're in the driver's seat. So that was a huge loss. Now we're talking about something a little bit different. I mean, really, any one of them are big because one more win, they're in a good spot. But yeah, to me, I agree with you guys. It is absolutely that Cardinals game. Before we move on to the next topic, Gray Fox, very generous. I appreciate that. Love your content, Jesse. It's Trey time. Let's go 49ers. Woo! All right. So with that being said, anytime somebody gives any sort of donation, I always play a little thing for them. I've got two of them. Because that was $100, I feel like it's only right that I play them both. So I'll play the first one, and then I'll play the second one. One more. Gray Fox.
Loving the Carlton.
I'm about to make a donation myself right fast while we're doing this, just to get a little bit more of that. Oh my God, I needed that. Both of those in my life.
That's awesome. All right. So blame game pie. And actually, Lou, I'm going to go to you first. So Titans game, as a 49er fan, we're screaming at the TV. I know I was. I'm like, Jimmy, dude, what the hell are you doing? You just lost us this game. But as an outsider perspective, maybe you're going to hold me accountable and say, listen, it wasn't just that. Or you're going to basically check all the boxes that I thought for the reason that the 49ers lost. If you're doing a blame game pie and assigning percentages, who do you put that game on the most and why?
On the most, I'm going to become really political right now and say 50-50. All right.
Okay, I like it.
All right.
And listen, of the United States live.
Yes. I don't want to piss off the Jimmy G haters, but I also don't want to, paint myself in a corner being a total Jimmy G supporter. All right. So all that being said, I watched that game actually 3 times. Basically to get a better understanding.
Kelly's not a fan because we couldn't watch it 3 times.
I'm not gonna lie, the second time I wasn't sober. So okay.
Yeah. There you go. That's
yeah. Cool. So basically first, 50% Jimmy G. Looking at that game, it just baffles me how he still is a starting NFL quarterback. He's very indecisive, he's very limited. He has trouble with his progressions. If his first read is not there, he gets flustered. And I feel like he looks to check it down immediately as opposed to going to a second or third read. Looking at some stats real quick, if it's under 10 air yards, he's good. 13 out of 13, 128, 9.8 yards per attempt. But if you ask him to make a bigger play with his arm downfield, like the bomb to the fullback Kyle Juszczyk, I'll tell you right now, he's not going to make those big throws, those over 10 air yards. 1 out of 5, 16 yards an interception, 3.2 yards per attempt. So yeah, it's Jimmy G. Was definitely 50%. That costly turnover in the red zone. Oh my God, that stuff like that makes me want to lose my hair and just pull it out. However, I think there's one thing you guys are so quick to blame, just Jimmy G. Your defense was good, except for where it count most on third down. Situational defensive plays on third down was, I'm going to say, it was bad. I have here that Tannehill, he converted 8 third and longs on you guys. You guys were pressuring them all the time on first and second down. When it came to third 10, you could not get to them. So I think that's huge too. That is how AJ Brown started heating up, and Tannehill started finding those wide open receivers in the cracks of the cover 3 zone that you guys run. I will put something on your defense too. They played a good game. They gave up only 20 points, but damn, on third and long, that defense, that front 4, that's where you got. That is like, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is your philosophy. You want third and long so you can rush those 4 and then play 7 in the back. So I think they had to have some blame too. That situational defense.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. Weston, what about you?
So, Jesse, I tried so hard to go back to this game and watch it with a keen eye. So you'll find very quickly between Lou and I, Lou is very analytical, and I am very much the eye test, right? And I'm sorry, and I'm not going to say the name anymore. I'm just going to say a lot of this responsibility of this loss falls squarely on number 10. Don't know how else to put this. There's so many plays that stand out. I thought Kyle was in his bag, right? I thought, and he's been all year, and just I don't understand it. I know earlier in the season I had some question marks too, but he was just trying to make this offense go. But like he's a momentum guy, right? Like players have to execute, and the more we execute, the deeper he's going to get in his bag. But if you go back and watch, there's always somebody open. There's just always somebody open, and it's up to number 10 to execute the use check throw. I mean, you're not throwing to a spot there. You had time. That guy is wide open. Just put it on him. Even if you throw it short because you don't want to throw it out of bounds, he's walking into the end zone. I don't understand it. I'm not going to sit here and say I can make that throw, right? I'd cry in the pocket, right? Like I'm not that crazy. But what I am saying is, yeah, a lot of this goes on 10. And I don't want to say that because that's what everybody is saying, but it's the reality and it's what my eyes tell me the more and more I watch it. I will say this because I have a little other responsibility here that needs to be shouldered. D'Amico Ryans, hat off to you, sir. I know what you're playing with on that defensive side. I know what we are lacking on the outside, but I'm going to say this person's name. Josh Norman is a liability every single week in coverage. Lou just talked about not being able to get off the field on third down. Number 26 is a huge reason for that. And here's the facts. Go back and watch this game. They targeted Norman far more than they targeted Ambry Thomas. You got a rookie out there, right? And you're going after the vet because you know he's open. He's playing 8-9 yards off the guy every single time. I get it. I get the caliber of receiver that AJ Brown is. I get what Julio the threat begins, but like every once in a while on those third down, and D'Amico has done his best to use our safeties to umbrella and to mask a clear deficiency. But I agree with Lou. The third down conversions to me that I'm assigning to the defensive back, specifically the corner, specifically one corner, and number 10. I mean, there's literally no other place to put this blame.
Yeah, I'm with you. And the defense was frustrating, right? Because they definitely had him in this situation. If the defense had done their job, they still probably win the game. So I think I understand what you're saying, Lou. If they do their job, 49ers still win despite everything that Jimmy did, right? We just talked about the Arizona Cardinals game. Jimmy did everything right in that game, and everything else was so wrong. And that's why they lost, right? But this game, Jimmy G did everything wrong. And unfortunately, they couldn't carry him through, right? And it was just a really, really tough night to watch. I usually geek out. I can't wait for the all 22. I'm reviewing it. I'm not this week. I haven't watched the all 22 of that game. I haven't geeked out on that game whatsoever. I went back and I watched the Arizona Trey Lance game in thoughts that he might start this week. I wanted no part of watching that Titans game. So, Jimmy G, for all intents and purposes, he put up 17 points for the 49ers and 18 points for the Titans. He himself lost the game. Defense definitely could have done better, and they still possibly would have won. But that was so much on Jimmy G. And, truth be told, then it sucks, right? Because now he may be done. So it feels – I'm the first one to bag on Jimmy, but it almost feels bad. Like I feel bad for doing it at this point. But really, Jimmy, the 3 out of the last 4 games, that Atlanta game, he played fine. He played really good. 3 out of the last 4 games, he really has not played well at all. People want to point to the Bengals game, say that he led 2 game-winning drives, whatever that means. You can only have 1, but 2 game-winning drives. He was atrocious to that point. He was not playing good football. Seattle, he played bad football. Obviously, Tennessee, it all exploded in his face. So I don't know. I just feel like this game was on him. But Lou, let me ask you this, and we'll get back into the topics, but what do you think of Jimmy Garoppolo as a quarterback?
I'm so happy you asked this.
Yes. Is he a top 15 guy, top 20? Like, where do you have him ranked roughly?
Okay, so getting back to this Titans game, literally watching with an analytical eye, the San Francisco 49ers have done a lot, I feel like, to make his life easier. They have used a tremendous amount of motion to help identify if it's man or zone, right? First and foremost. The play designs are phenomenal. There's literally the alignment is 3. I saw literally 3 plays, same alignment, three different plays. One was a running play, two was a play action play, and the third setup was a passing play. So they disguise everything looks the same, but all the plays are completely different at post snap. So they've also got so much talent around him that can basically the yards after a catch and support him that way, because they know he can't air the ball out down the field. They basically have to rely on the guys to catch the ball near line of scrimmage, boom, go for it, like your Debo Samuels, your Ayuk, and your Kittle, and work that middle of the field. He is so limited, and even with the mastermind of Kyle Shanahan, it's crazy to see this offense be held back by Jimmy G. I'm not a Jimmy G believer. The only time Weston and I have been arguing this, every week in regards to Jimmy G. You had to start him in the beginning because fairly, I thought that Lance was not up to snuff when it comes to probably the playbook. It's a complicated design there, Kyle Shanahan's offense. So I'm like, you can't just throw Lance out there, because if he falters, how's that going to do? What is that going to do to his psyche? So I thought that the defense was enough to basically support Jimmy G's shortcomings. And all that being said, but now it's kind of getting played out, and I think maybe he's a really good backup quarterback nowadays. Like, I'm going to say, if you want to like a flailing rookie and you want to promote some competition, like if Mitch Trubisky was still playing, you would sign Jimmy G, a guy that can push Trubisky, but not be too much of a threat. So that's how I see Jimmy G, in my honest opinion.
See, and that's crazy to hear, right? Because you're a Charger fan, right? You know what good quarterback play looks like. You've been blessed with good quarterback play for a long time in that franchise. I mean, he went from Breeze to Rivers and I don't know what your thoughts are, Rivers. I always thought he was one of the most underrated quarterbacks for so many years, Rivers, and then now you've got my guy, Justin Herbert there. So you've been pretty lucky over the last 20 years to see what good quarterbacks look like. I don't know if I'll go as far as you and say he's a backup, but he's lower tier starting quarterback at best, right? And that's where the 49ers are at. So I'm just curious to see how it plays out. Speaking of that, is this the last of Jimmy G? I mean, it sounds like we're going to find out tomorrow for sure, right? But let's go a little bit different direction, because we don't know for sure if this is the last we see of him. I imagine if Trey starts on Sunday, it's over for Jimmy. They're not playing him week 18, even if he can go. It's Trey Lance time. So with that being said, are you excited about this era beginning at this time, Weston, as a 49er fan?
You're damn right I am. And this is not a knock on Jimmy, right? This is not a knock on Jimmy. This is not a knock on Tan. I root for the name on the front of the jersey, not the back of the jersey, always and forever. And you know what? Nobody, and Lou will tell you, nobody wanted to see Jimmy succeed more than me. Like what I felt in 2017 when we went and got him, what he was able to be a part of, and I stress a part of, in 2019, not the sole reason. But it's time, and quite frankly, it's been time for a little while. I agree. Like, the beginning of the year, I didn't want to see Trey out there. Like, hey, redshirt him. If you're redshirting him, that means things are going well for the team. I thought there was an opportunity to sneak him in earlier. But one thing I do want to say, Jesse, because I know you've been on this train for a little while, right? I won't call it Jimmy bashing. I'll call it Jimmy reality check. Yeah. And the reality here is, dude, 75% of the teams in the NFL are faced with the same predicament. Unless you have Mahomes, unless you have Rodgers or Allen or Herbert or Lamar, you're always looking for a freaking quarterback. Like, it's the same problem time and time again for team and team and team again. And there's a couple youngsters that we'll find out if their teams will be in this boat moving forward, a Burrow, whatever it might be. These guys, I think, have legs. So you're asking me what I believe. I believe this should be the end of Jimmy for the 49ers. Am I thrilled about it? No, absolutely not, because I'd rather not be having this conversation, because it means we're winning football games and we're a perennial postseason team and he's not often injured. But if you're asking me, is this the end of Jimmy? I can't answer that, because I think this situation has been so mismanaged for the last 2 years that this leadership, and I am looking at Kyle, I am looking at John Lynch, have given me no reason to believe that they are moving on from Jimmy. They flirted with it for 2 years, but yet here we are. Here he is. And I think, let's get the obvious out. Obvious is huge cap relief. We need that money. We need to go spend that money and bring some talent around, especially if you're running with a rookie quarterback. But he's still under contract. And you're not just going to let him go. Like, it's a dry quarterback market. You're going to try to get something for him. And what if the teams are out there not offering what we believe he's worth? You've said this before related to other things. I think you made mention of it with what coach was it that you posted a clip about? Trey Lance. You're talking about Trey and like Jimmy and accountability, right? Like where Trey's like me versus we in their press conference. Well, I feel the same way about Kyle. Kyle's not an I guy, right? Like he's a we guy, which to me means like he doesn't like to admit his mistakes, right? And whoever's mistake Jimmy might have been, if you want to classify him as a mistake, I don't think they're just gonna wash their hands. Like if they don't get somebody if they don't get I would say substantial and not even substantial, decent collateral for him in exchange, don't be surprised if he's on this roster next year, especially if they're not, because they don't have to move him right away. They don't have to move him immediately in the offseason. And if Trey is just not progressing to Kyle's liking, like, don't be surprised.
Can I interject here, Jesse? Would you mind?
Yeah. Give me a second, because we just hit the 100 people watching mark, and I want to reiterate what you guys are here and where you're from. So I've got Weston up top with me. I've got Lou right below us. They're from the We're Talking Football podcast. Go show them some love. Everything that they do, link is down in the description. And if you're here for the first time, or you're not here for the first time and you haven't subscribed, first of all, what are you doing? Hit subscribe, hit that bell notification, right? Show some love. We appreciate you. 49ers season is just picking up. We're talking everything 49ers right now. Just a heads up, when you hear from Lou, who's about to talk next, he is a Charger fan. So it's good to get an outside perspective. Lou, go ahead. Run with what you wanted to run with.
I'm the antithesis of Weston for a lot of things, and this is one of them. Yeah, this is absolutely the last you're going to see Jimmy G. And let me tell you why. There's no way they're going into next year with Jimmy G hanging around that quarterback room. What will that do to the psyche of Trey Lance, first and foremost? Why would you do that, too, after giving so many draft picks away to move up for Trey Lance? If you're giving up that many draft picks, you're saying that is our guy of the future. You cannot have a broken marriage in that quarterback room in San Francisco. So I'm firm believer. And you're talking about like a dry quarterback market, is it though? You got Watson, Rodgers, Wilson. You got to temper your expectations of what you're going to get for Jimmy G. You'll be lucky if you can get a fifth or a sixth, in my honest opinion. And that'll be great because you get some cap relief too. And last but not least, this is why they do need to cut ties with them. San Francisco is 1-6 when Jimmy G throws an interception. Basically, he cannot get himself out of a hole when he makes a mistake. And how often does he make a mistake, guys? I mean, you guys know more than I do when it comes to that.
Jesse, I know this is your show, but let me refute this man for one moment. And if not, I'm going to have to run down the street because we live that close to each other and bang on his front door and wake his daughter up. So, Lou, you're right. And I agree with everything you're saying. If it's me, I don't even know if I need anything back in trade. If I get a third, a fourth, a fifth, whatever it is, take it, move. If somebody's looking for it, I'm cutting him and I'm taking the cap relief. That's the win for me as a team. I'm saying that's what I'm doing. But Jesse and I can attest that this team has, and by team, I mean leadership, has given us zero indication that they'll do that, or they defy conventional wisdom at every turn and every possibility that they get. So don't be surprised if number 10 is on the roster next year. I'm not trying to burst anybody's bubble, and this is not an uneducated opinion. This is 33 years of watching this fan base to know, dude, we had Joe Montana and Steve Young on the same damn roster, right? Like, this is what this team can do. They can do it. If they think it's going to benefit them, they will do it. And don't be shocked. You heard it here from Weston and Jesse first, that's a reality.
Yeah. No, I mean, anything is possible. And you just talked about how Kyle Shanahan doesn't like to use a lot of eyes. He doesn't like to take accountability. Now, I will give him credit where credit is due. He has gotten better about that. I feel like he heard a lot of people saying this, because almost immediately after a week or two of being called out for it, he started to do it more often. So more credit to him in that front. But that being said, he doesn't like to admit mistakes. Front office doesn't like to admit mistakes. So if you have to cut Jimmy G and that's the option, I hesitate to think that that's something they will outright do. I do think there will be some sort of market for Jimmy G only because it's supply and demand. Right now, the supply is low and the demand is very high. There's minimum 5 teams that legit need a quarterback next year. There's 1, maybe 2 coming out of the draft this year that you could really rely on, and that might be generous. I'll see as I break out, get into the film during the offseason. But then there's just not a lot of guys out there, right? We don't know what's going to happen with Watson. Wilson may get moved, but then Seattle needs a quarterback. Rodgers may get moved, but do they believe in Love? I don't know. So I don't think they're going to get a lot. A lot of people are talking about the Sam Darnold trade, how they got a second. What was it? A future second, a fifth, and a sixth, or something like that. That's not going to happen. Like the way that I see it, here's what I honestly think the 49ers are going to get. This is my honest opinion right now as it sits. If he does not play another game for the 49ers this year, I believe they will get offered a fourth that can escalate to a third depending on playing time. Much like you saw with Carson Wentz with the second that escalated to a first. That's what I think the offer will be. And they're going to have to take that offer. There's nothing better that's going to come. So in my opinion, I think that's realistic. I could see a team offering that. And I think for the 49ers, if you could get a potential third out of Jimmy G and save that money, it's something that you have to do.
That's money in the bank if you can get that. And you mentioned, Lou, the 3 names, right? So you have Russell, Watson, Rodgers. You know what it's going to take to get those guys to come out of off those rosters, right? You're talking, I mean, the market's been set, right? When you look at Stafford, you're going to tell me for those 3 guys, you're not moving 3 firsts, right? Like, so it's also like, hey, what am I willing to give up if I'm a talent-starved team that needs a quarterback? Reality is somebody like Jimmy looks a little bit more attractive because it's not going to cost nearly as much.
Well, guys, I just put the trade through in Madden 2022, and basically it denied that 3rd round pick. It said a 5th round with the possibility of a 4th rounder. So, by the way, rest in peace to the GOAT, Madden.
Yeah, John Madden.
Yeah, sure. Real talk, man. Anybody who grew up playing Madden football, we're fortunate enough. I'm old enough to have watched him in the booth. Mm-hmm. I loved him and Al Michaels together were, the best tandem of all time. Those two, Summerall, what did I say, Al Michaels? Him and Summerall together.
They were Michaels too.
He did. That was later.
Him and Pat,
right? But I'm talking the Fox crew, right? Oh. Those two together were so dang good. And then you got Madden football. I learned about the basics of coverages for Madden football. Mm-hmm. Like in 6th grade, 5th grade, I know what a cover 2 looks like, a cover 3, 4, because of Madden football. Like it taught so many of us. So all-time great. Madden, rest in peace. You are definitely missed, a legend for sure. Tommy wants to know, Jesse, my guy, are you nervous or confident? I'm assuming this is about Trey Lance. A little bit of both, if I'm being real with you, Tommy. I'm confident in what Trey Lance will bring to this team. I just don't know if you're going to see it right away. And in this situation where it's 2 must-win games to go to the playoffs, I also know how finicky this fan base is. And if he does not perform right away, heaven forbid if they lose a game because of Trey, the dumpster fire that will ensue, I do not trust that fans will be patient. That's what I'm nervous about. As far as Trey panning out and being a great player, I am very confident in that. I've said it many times. Everybody knows where I stand with Trey Lance. Into 2023, the cream will rise to the top, and Trey Lance will be there. But for right now, he hasn't played. He's being forced into a tough situation. That's what makes me a little bit nervous. So we'll see what happens. And by the way, people are sleeping on the Texans. Texans have beaten some good teams, and their pass defense is, I believe, the 6th ranked pass defense. So it's not like he's coming in and playing a patsy pass defense and he's going to be able to do his thing. His work is going to be cut out for him. So do not be shocked if he struggles a little bit, right? So that being said, perfect segue. Realistic expectations for Trey. I think I just gave mine. I do owe this real quick, though, for the donation. Tommy, thank you. All right. So I've just laid out my expectations for Trey. Not my expectations, but just some of my worries, my reserves. Lou, I'll let you go first. You, as a Charger fan, we just talked about all the great quarterbacks that have come through there in the last 20 plus years. I believe you have a really good one right now, Justin Herbert. For me, I've laid my claim in 3 quarterbacks coming out of the draft over the last 5 years. Herbert was one, Josh Allen was another, Trey Lance is the third, right? And being an Oregon fan, I actually pegged Herbert 3 games into a sophomore season before really anybody knew who this kid was. He was making pro throws back then, and I knew, and this is sacrilegious to say when you're an Oregon Duck fan, especially then, but saying he was going to be a better player overall than Mariota was a big deal then. And I said he would be a top 5 to 7 quarterback when it was all said and done in the league. I really saw that from him. So seeing that you guys played the rookie right away, I know it wasn't what the plan was, but that's what happened. Trey Lance sitting most of this year and now coming into this situation, what are your realistic expectations for Trey Lance?
Well, do you guys think Shanahan messed up Jimmy G's thumb on purpose? He's just like how the Chargers messed up Tyrod Taylor's lung. Conspiracy theory here. All kidding aside, expectations should be highs and lows. Going into the draft, I had Trey Lance as my second-ranked quarterback from this past year. And when they moved up, all the chatter with Mac Jones, I'm like, it has to be Trey Lance. It has to be Trey Lance. He reminded me a little of Steve McNair. He's big, he's physical, he's got a good arm. You just need a little more time, I think, to develop, mentally from reading coverages. I knew he ran a pro style offense, but still, it's it wasn't Division I and what have you. So all that being said, I think he'll do fairly good against the Houston. Houston has no idea really what to prepare for. I know they got a little film against the Cardinals, but you're hoping that he's way better off now than he was, in the earlier in the season. I could picture him 250, 270 total yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 turnovers, up and down the situation. I think that's realistic and fair. It's the second week that I think that would be giving me concern. I believe you guys play the Rams, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
That is where I think when you have a rookie quarterback, you just don't want them to look lost. You want to see the flashes. You want to see that's why we took him. So whether that's him just looking comfortable in rhythm, efficient, athletic plays, rolling out of the pocket, what have you, you just don't want them to look lost. And I think you have to really temper your expectations. It's good that all your playmakers are healthy on the offensive side of the ball and they'll be able to help them out. But like I said, it's the first game. I have no issue. I think he's going to be well because there's be limited tape on him. It's that second game that'll give me a little concern. But overall, I think Lance is this offseason, Kyle is going to be like a scientific madman designing all these plays and the options with Trey Lance. So I think you're really going to see him explode onto the scene next year.
I actually forgot about this. Chargers just played the Texans, yeah?
Yeah.
And they just lose. Okay.
Thank you, Jesse.
No, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. I know it seems like I was trying to be a jerk there. I really wasn't. It was just like, I could have set that up a little bit different. Like you literally just saw the Texans defense and they're a better pass defense probably than what maybe even you expected going in, right? It's one of those games where you're like, Texans, that's a win. We mark that off. But reality is they're not playing bad football. And that defense, that passing defense in particular, is a good pass defense. So what about you, Weston? What do you think realistic expectations are?
So I'm going to look at this from 2 lenses. And just so you know how I feel about Trey Lance, do you remember the North Dakota State hype video that they put out when he was drafted? Do you remember seeing that across Twitter?
Yeah. Yep.
I made that video. I'm in that on my reaction. That's my literally only claim to fame ever.
I love it. That's dope.
And his head's been so big since that. You should see him walk around town, man.
Check it out.
Do you sign autographs is what I want to know after this. Yeah.
Damn right for you, I do, sir, for sure. But it's got to be my jersey with my name on it.
Weston, tell about your OnlyFans page.
I don't know who listens to this, so I'll keep that out of it. So, but Jesse, I'm like you in all seriousness. I think Trey will become, the cream of the crop out of this class. I think his ceiling is exponential, but like any player in the NFL, it's about situations. It's about scenarios. It's about coaching. You've seen a lot of good talent flounder. I think he's on the right team. I think it was good that he was able to sit for a while and learn how to just be a pro, right? Understand what his expectations are from his coaching and how his predecessor is destroyed by this fan base. And 49er fan base, I do love you, but you are the most impatient people in the entire world, is what it really comes down to. Because I agree. I think if he has one bad game, world's on fire. Like literally world's on fire. Everybody's bring back 10 or draft another quarterback or whatever it is. But immediately, what do I expect? Honestly, I expect him to struggle. He's a rookie. It's his second start against a good pass defense that's on a roll a little bit right here. Like, practice looks a lot different than games, right? In this day and age with COVID going on, you barely even practice. You don't contact each other. You're in meeting rooms. You're on Zoom meetings. Like, it's not happening. The game moves a lot faster. I would say, our only exposure to Trey was in Arizona, where actually I thought he played relatively well. If you went back and watched the tape for a first-time starter, no best offensive weapon in George Kittle. Ayuk was literally still in the doghouse at this point in time. Like, what was he to do? And I know there's 16 runs, blah, blah, blah. Not all those were designed runs, right? Would I like to see him not run as much? Yeah, like he's still young. I want to see him be mobile in the pocket, but all the things that make a good quarterback, developing your rapport with wide receivers, getting through your progression confidently, reading defenses pre-snap. We talked about the motion that Kyle does. All of that takes time. That does not happen overnight. And that's why some pundits wanted him to play immediately, because the more repetition, right? They're using Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson as the example of like, they're getting this under their belt now. But you know what? Those teams had no expectations. This team had entirely different aspirations and expectations of their football team. But everything that makes a good quarterback takes time. It's not going to happen in his first week out there. I agree with Lou. If we see somewhere north of 2.25 from a passing yard perspective, a couple touchdowns with a couple turnovers, that is actually success, right? And you have to remember, he's uber athletic, right? So in those breakdown scenarios, I just want to see him use his legs a little bit. I want to see him slide. I want to see him get out of bounds. I don't want to see him take hits. But if you think he's coming out here and lighting the world on fire, you are literally kidding yourself. Like, that is not going to happen. You mentioned Jimmy's a net zero quarterback. What I define that is, he doesn't win you the game. Hopefully he doesn't lose you the game, right? If Trey can do that and make one or two plays with his legs, that is a successful outing. That is how you will win this first game. I won't even look at the second game yet, because I need to see how the first game goes. But if you are not expecting him to struggle, you're naive, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and I love what you said there. If he can just be a net zero quarterback, that would be great. We don't want him to go out there and lose the game, but I do want to be clear. If that happens, guys, we're talking about a rookie quarterback. We have to be willing to go through these growing pains, like especially if you're a guy like me, where you were calling for Trey all season, wanted him to start week 1, wanted Jimmy to not be on the team, wanted them to take the Patriots approach, where they got rid of the problem before it became a problem. That's what I wanted to see happen. So if you're like that, or you've been calling for Trey all season, you have to know that growing pains are going to happen, and you have to be patient. It's not about this year. As much as we want the 49ers to make the playoffs, yes, that would be fantastic, especially if he could go in, get some playoff experience, maybe play well, maybe even win a game. I would love that. But it's not about this year. We're looking at the future for Trey Lance. This team was never going to win a Super Bowl this year. It wasn't going to win it with Jimmy. So the expectation can't be that we're going to win it with Trey Lance. These are his first starts. And as far as what Christian says here, what can Kyle do to set him up for success? Run the ball. It sounds like Mitchell should be back this week. You've got a healthy Jeff Wilson Jr. Those two running backs can get it done. They should shoot for 40-plus run attempts like they did against the Rams. Make this game easy for them. In my opinion, another thing they can do, which they did almost none of it, get them out on bootlegs. Let them make easy reads. Cut the field in half. Give him a high-low read and allow him to run the ball as an option. You do that and make the game easy for him, it's going to look easy for him. And he'll probably look better than what he actually is at this point. I believe that Kyle Shanahan can definitely dial it up. I'm a little bit nervous about the offensive line, knowing that Trey's a mobile quarterback. We saw quite a few penalties in that Arizona game. They've gotten used to playing with Jimmy G. So now that Trey Lance is playing, can they hold up? Do they know when he's going to run? Do they know when they need to protect him and hold versus just letting a lineman go and let him make the play? So I think that's going to be one of the bigger growing pains that nobody's talking about. People want to talk about Trey and what he brings to the game. People want to talk about his athleticism and all these things, and can Kyle coach him up and all of that. Is this offensive line ready to play with a mobile quarterback? I think that is going to be possibly a bigger issue than all of it, to be real with you.
And I love that you made that point, Jesse, because it's different. Like when I think of like blocking for Lamar, right? Because he drops back a lot and then scrambles and runs around. So your block time is not 2.5 seconds. It's like 6.5 seconds. But if you do what you just described and you roll out Trey and you boot him outside, the linemen know the call, right? So when I know there's a boot or an option, that changes my mindset. I just got to deflect. I just got to get in front of somebody. I don't have to hold my block and lock somebody up because I know he's on the roll and he's creating time himself. So I agree. If you can see, I mean, literally 10 to 15 of those play calls in the game, that's putting Trey in, or setting him up for success in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get out of here, though, you guys are fantasy football guys. So let's put this in a fantasy football perspective for a second. Going into the championship week, let's say I've got a quarterback like Kirk Cousins, right? Are you taking a chance on picking up a Trey Lance off of waivers and playing him this week, knowing that he can get you those rushing yards? Lou, I'll start with you. Would you play Trey Lance in your fantasy football leagues in a championship scenario if you've got a quarterback? We'll say Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, someone like that.
Wow, how the hell did you make the fantasy championship with Kirk Cousins or Matt Ryan?
Maybe you drafted Debo late. I don't know.
Yeah.
By the way, this is a real scenario. Like this is my scenario right now. So I'm selfishly asking for me.
Real talk.
That's fine. So a lot of things take in consideration first and foremost, and I'm not I'm going to say a slave when it comes to projected scores. But if you feel like your opponent is projected to, to beat you, and you need more upside play, then yeah, I take the gamble when it comes to Trey Lance because of the rushing yards, especially if you're in a league that's throwing touchdowns for 4 points a throwing touchdown. Then yeah, I would definitely take the risk of having Trey Lance because you need a higher ceiling. Now, if you're a team that like, hey, I don't know how I'm playing this guy, his team is awful. You need a lower floor. You need a higher floor. Then I'm starting Kirk Cousins or your Matt Ryan. It all depends what your team is versus that team is, and what you need to be out of that quarterback position.
Listen,
that's fair.
No risk it, no biscuit. I'm talking to you, Bruce Arians, right? You're in the championship game. That's the hardest thing to do. I would actually say that making the playoffs is probably harder than getting to the championship in fantasy because there's just so much that unfolds. But right now, plus side is all I'm thinking about. And look at what Herbert did last week. Am I comparing Trey Lance to Justin Herbert? By no means. But I think the offense is going to be in similar scenarios. And you got to feel Trey's running one in. You got to feel Trey's throwing one in. Keeping the offense simple, he's going to run for 50, right? So, like, those things I think are like, if you like to bet parlays and do things like that, like, those are ones you want to go find. What's the over-under on his rush yards, anytime touchdown, those sort of things. Trey's going to hit those, and I think, dude, it's the championship, man. Like, got to do it. Got to do it.
Real quick to piggyback off of Weston. Yeah, so if I'm also trying to gauge what do I think Trey Lance will actually have an output, I would think, okay, realistically, how many passing yards do I think on the low end is he going to get? 190. Okay. Yeah. Worst case scenario, throwing touchdown. Okay. 2 turnovers and a rushing touchdown and like 40 to 50 yards. What point total does that average out? And just trying to add it up from that standpoint.
23, 24 points all day.
And then you'll be fine with that. So
yeah.
So like I said, to piggyback off Weston say, just try to gauge what you think he's going to put up and round down.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Well, guys, first of all, if you're watching right now, again, I'm going to plug their podcast. It is We're Talking Football Pod. You've got Weston right next to me. He is the resident 49er fan. You've got Lou right below. He is a Charger fan. He was very gracious in talking Niner football with us today. But I really put their chops to the test. Hopefully you realize how knowledgeable they are. These guys talk about the whole NFL, which means they have to know a little bit about every team and how the league works, how it operates, and they talk fantasy football. Weston also just turned half of the chat into degenerates talking about parlays. So that's their chop. So make sure you go subscribe to them. Guys, thank you so much for tapping in with me tonight. Really appreciate it. Chat, you guys were live tonight. Appreciate each and every one of you. I will be back on tomorrow, Wednesday night with Grant Cohn. And then right after that, we'll do the call-in show right here for you guys so that you can get your takes off. Weston, before I let you go, is there anything else that you want to talk about? Anything last that you want to plug?
No, I just, I'll let Lou rattle it off in a second, but, Jesse, can't thank you enough. Really appreciate this opportunity. It's your forum, and you gave us an opportunity and time. And, hope everybody out there had a wonderful holiday. Stay safe. I know there's another party night coming up upon us, but give us a chance. I promise you won't be disappointed from a listening standpoint. And Lou, as I always do, man, I'll rely on you to let them know where they can find us.
Yeah, real quick. You have to understand how hard this is for me talking about 49ers football, but because of your team, it was the first time I ever cried watching football when you guys murdered 53 guys from San Diego in that Super Bowl back in the 90s. It just wanted to stop. Like, they're dead already. Just stop. Please stop throwing. So anytime, I still have PSTD when it comes to talking about 49ers. But all that being said, thanks again, Jesse, for having us on. And everyone, you can follow us the best Instagram page ever of all time, WTF Pod NFL. And also that's the Twitter handle as well.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you so much. Again, subscribe here, subscribe there. Check these guys out. Have a great night, guys. And I think we need to do this again at some point. We'll figure it out. We'll line it up. And good luck in your fantasy football championships, assuming you guys made it, because you guys sound like experts to me. Peace, guys.